Welcome to the Spitzen-Körper Thelema. We are reading Edward Pococke and an anonymous contributor from the Atlantic Monthly of 1859, a text that occupies a precise and unsettling position in the genealogy of Western esotericism. This is not romantic speculation. This is a deliberate archaeological claim, that the Eleusinian Mysteries, the most protected and sanctified rites of classical Greece, were not indigenous Greek phenomena at all, but rather the surviving shell of a Lamaic Buddhist priesthood that migrated westward from the Himalayan frontier, settling Greece under the auspices of high-caste Brahmanical and Buddhistic colonists. This argument emerges directly from the theosophical current that was consolidating itself in the 1850s and 1860s, a determination to trace all Western esoteric transmission back through India, Tibet, and what Pococke calls the Aryans, and further still, back to Atlantean origins. It is a bold recasting of the mystery tradition as Oriental infiltration rather than Hellenic invention. And it matters because it was read, cited, and absorbed into the very architecture of modern occultism, particularly into the ceremonial Masonry and Hermetic orders that claim lineal descent from these ancient rites. The passage we are examining performs two distinct operations. The first is denunciatory, a lament for the degradation of the mysteries through commercialization and later Christian suppression. The second is etymological and genealogical, an attempt to strip away the Greek nomenclature and expose the Sanskrit, Tibetan, and Buddhist substrates beneath. When the text tells us that Zeus becomes Zeus, that chakras becomes Zagreus, that the Lamaic system descended from Olympus, the high Lama Chiefs, into later Mount Olympus, it is performing what we might call radical historical decryption. The Greece we thought we knew is revealed as a palimpsest. The priesthood we imagined as Greek is renamed as the transmission of an older, Eastern wisdom guardianship. Here is the text: Then the keystone of the arch was knocked out and all that was sacred was given up to mockery. The mysteries of the Jews were identical with those of pagan Greeks, who took them from the Egyptians, who borrowed them from the Chaldeans, who got them from the Aryans, who inherited them from the Atlanteans, and so on. But what gods and angels had revealed, exoteric religions, beginning with that of Moses, reviled, reveiled, and hid for ages from the sight of the world. The lure of lucre was the final nail in the coffin of the Eleusinian, an Athenian demagogue and sycophant, whose eloquence was described as of a coarse and vehement character, degraded the sacred mysteries by persuading the state to levy a charge for those seeking admission to higher life. Thus initiation had become a commodity, and as necessary as baptism has since become with the Christians. Only the apoptai, who see things as they truly are, have preserved the sacred doctrines. The mystai, who knew them only superficially, laid the first foundation stone of modern masonry, and it is from this half-pagan, half-converted primitive fraternity of Masons that Christian ritualism and most of their dogmas were born. The first hour for the demise of the mysteries struck on the clock of the races with the Macedonian conqueror. The first strokes of its last hour sounded in 47 BCE in the Thebes of the Celts. But the mysteries of Eleusis could not be so easily disposed of. They were indeed the religion of mankind, and shone in all their ancient splendor if not in their primitive purity. It took several centuries to abolish them, and they could not be entirely suppressed before the year 396 of our era. Alas! The Eleusinian mysteries are no more. Universal myths are personifications of powers divine and cosmic, primary and secondary. Their figures are infused with a vital spirit which, like the light within a lantern, shines out through their many-colored fantasies. Prehistoric Greece was colonized by two great Indian races, the solar and the lunar dynasties. Springing up from the kingdoms of Kashmir and Tibet, The prehistoric colonists of Greece consisted of the two great primitive and radical races of Aryavata, the solar or ancient Buddhistic dynasty, Suryavansa, and the lunar dynasty, Chandravansa. The former were the earliest settlers in Greece, and their religious exponents appear to have been the Dodan, or Brahmanical priests of the great tribe, Doda. As history progressed, the original Lamaic system of religion has been so much modified and so far compromised, as to be compelled to seek refuge in the asylum of the Grecian mysteries, instead of the state position it once occupied. The Lamaic system, originating on the high tract of land in the vicinity of the Himalayan frontier of Tibet, had taken up a strong position to the north of Thessaly, on the Adrian mountain range, before descending into northern Greece, under the auspices of the Dalai Lamas, Lamienses or Lama tribes. This gigantic system of ancient Hellas was administered from that lofty mountain which was called Olympus by the later Greeks, but Olampos, or High Lama Chiefs, by the original settlers. With the passing of time, the settlers corrupted Zeus or Grand Lama, to Zeus, and Chakras, the horned child and favorite son of Zeus by his daughter, Persephone or Guru Parasipani, to Zagreus. Inside Greece, Bacchus was a prosnym of Zagreus, the successor of the Lamaic sovereignty in whose service was Orpheus, the founder of the mysteries. Outside Greece, Bacchus was the Tartarian Jupiter Hammon whose Lamaic worship accompanied the emigrants of Tartary to Egypt. In Buddhistic belief, the young Lama is born again from the consort of the giant pontiff, Simel or Sulemi, the great Lama queen. The Lama Chiefs, who spread the Lamaic doctrines in the Attic territory, became Eleusine. Their forms of worship and Tartar ceremonials composed the staple of the celebrated Eleusinian Mysteries. Pococke, the great Buddhistic pontiff, styled Ikshvaku by the Hindus, became Mogigos. Eleusinia were the holiest and most venerable of all mysteries in Greece. They were connected with the fertile Rherian plain near Athens that was named after the Rhya division of the five principal Brahmanical tribes. The high-born Brahmins or Kulini lived on the Peloponnese and Mount Cyllene. The mysteries were communicated to Kulis Silius, ruler of the land of the Rhya, by Dmata herself. The lesser mysteries were celebrated in honor of Parasupani Persephone, Durga or Kali, in February; the greater, in honor of Buddhist missionary Demeter in August. Yet the Greeks besmirched their noble ancestry by belittling their hierophants as troglodytes. Three hierarchs represented Buddhistical and Brahmanical power, while the political power of Sribptolemos or Triptolemos was formidable. The cave-dwelling Buddhist priests or Srukuladute, lords of the cave, who protected their secret doctrines from profanation, are today belittled as troglodytes. After admission to the innermost sanctuary, the initiate was discharged with those solemn words, "Salutation to the three holy ones." The mysterious name of Onjathin was also derived from Orm, the triple fire representing the highest tetractes. What did the Eleusinia mean? Perhaps, reader, you think the question of little interest. The Eleusinia? Why, Lobeck made that little matter clear long ago, and there was Porphyry, who told us that the whole thing was only an illustration of the Platonic philosophy. Street Croix, too, he made the affair as clear as day. But the question is not so easily settled, my friend, and I insist upon it that you have an interest in it. Were I to ask you the meaning of Freemasonry, you would think that of importance. You could not utter the name without wonder, and it may be that there is even more wonder in it than you suspect, though you be an archmason yourself. But in sight of Eleusis, Freemasonry sinks into insignificance. For, of all races, the Grecian was the most mysterious, and, of all Grecian mysteries, the Eleusinia were the mysteries par excellence. They must certainly have meant something to Greece, something more than can ever be adequately known to us. A farce is soon over, but the Eleusinian reached from the mythic Olympus to Theodosius the Great, nearly 2,000 years. Think you that all Athens, every 5th year, for more than 60 generations, went to Eleusis to witness and take part in a sham? There were 9 days of the festival. This first is the day of the Agimos, or assembling together the flux of Grecian life into the secret chambers of its Eleusinian heart. Tomorrow is the day of purification, then, to the sea, all ye that are initiated. Lest any come with the stain of impurity to the mysteries of God. The third day is the day of sacrifices, that the heart also may be made pure, when are offered barley from the fields of Eleusis and a mullet. All other sacrifices may be tasted, but this is for matter alone, and not to be touched by mortal lips. On the fourth day, we join the procession bearing the sacred basket of the goddess, filled with curious symbols, grains of salt, carded wool, sesame, pomegranates, and poppies, symbols of the gifts of our Great Mother and of her mighty sorrow. On the night of the 5th, we are lost in the hurrying tumult of the torchlight processions. Then there is the 6th day, the great day of all, when from Athens the statue of Bacchus, is borne, crowned with myrtle, tumultuously through the sacred gate, along the sacred way, halting by the sacred fig tree, where the procession rests, and then moves on to the bridge over the Cephisus, where again it rests, and where the expression of the wildest grief gives place to the trifling farce, even as Demeter, in the midst of her grief, smiled at the levity of Iambe in the palace of Silius. Through the mystical entrance we enter Eleusis. On the 7th day, games are celebrated, and to the victor is given a measure of barley, as it were a gift direct from the hand of the goddess. The 8th is sacred to Aesculapius, the divine physician, who heals all diseases, and in the evening is performed the initiatory ritual. We must have been mistai, veiled, before we can become apoptai, seers. In plain English, we must have shut our eyes to all else before we can behold the mysteries. This text operates as both polemic and manual. The first section is a genealogical claim of stunning ambition. All Western initiation streams back through a single origin point, and that origin is not European at all, but Asian, specifically Buddhist and Brahmanical. The degradation the author mourns is not merely historical loss but a kind of willful blindness. When an Athenian demagogue converts the mysteries into a paid commodity, initiation itself becomes commodified. The gateway to direct perception, to what the apoptai alone possess, sight of things as they truly are, collapses into mere transaction. This is crucial. The text is not simply lamenting the end of a religion. It is claiming that the corruption of the initiatory structure is itself the mechanism of spiritual death. Once you charge admission, you have already lost the thing itself. But the second operation is more radical still. By renaming every deity, every priesthood, every geographical marker with its supposed Sanskrit or Tibetan substrate, the text performs a kind of esoteric decryption. This is not etymological rigor as a modern scholar would understand it. It is magical realism applied to history. Demeter is Buddhist missionary Demeter. Zeus is a corruption of Zeus, the Grand Lama. The entire architecture of classical Greece becomes a veil, and the text's work is to lift that veil and show the Buddhist priesthood moving westward like a diaspora of wisdom keepers. This argument fed directly into theosophical doctrine, into H. P. Blavatsky's secret doctrine, and from there into the ritualism of the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn and beyond. It created a historical mythology in which the West's most sacred mysteries were always already Eastern in origin, always already the inheritance of an Aryan or Atlantean past. Whether historically defensible or not, this claim became generative. It licensed subsequent occultists to treat Hermeticism, Masonry, and Western ceremonial magic as vessels for the transmission of an older, Oriental gnosis. The Eleusinian Mysteries, read through this lens, become a kind of Rosetta Stone, not for understanding ancient Greece, but for understanding the hidden structure of modern initiation itself. Next, Eliphas Levi, The Doctrine and Ritual of High Magic. The Spitzen-Körper Thelema. If this archive serves you, support it on Patreon. Link in the description.